I'm back, but today, right now, is the easy part for me. I get to ask all the questions.
Be nice.
Hi, Kerry. It's funny because before I was talking about AI transformation at a startup scale, and your company is definitely not a startup. So maybe we can start there. Give us a sense for the scale of your business.
Yeah, so BT is the UK incumbent telco. It's 20 billion market cap, so we're definitely not in startup mode. That doesn't mean we can't, and we should, and we have to behave like a startup.
So let's talk about that. You're the COO of the business unit, right? So how are you thinking about the product function within BT?
Yeah. So each of the product towers, as we call them, they're $1 billion in their own right, each one of them. So we do need to think really carefully, to your point, about how do we move those. They're big monoliths. And a lot of the focus has been around how do we get our product managers to think of themselves as running the business. Yeah, so a 360 product manager, we call them. So they're really responsible for both the revenue, the gross margin, the customer experience, and consistently trying to trade all of those. You talked about it a little bit earlier. Does the CPO role move more towards the GM? Does it move more towards the technical environment? In BT, we're still structured. The engineering teams and the product teams are separate. We'll probably touch on it later, but they work very, very closely together. So we're a little bit more inclined towards stretching towards the GM model. So it's very much about making sure our historically telcos were shipping features. Yeah, we're very good at shipping features, building roadmaps, and really supporting the sales teams and getting out there to help our customers understand what we do and how we can help them to solve their problems. But we need to change our game. In an era of AI, it's got to be about outcomes. It's no longer about how do we ship those roadmaps and those features. And so we've really focused on how do we get our product managers to be those 360 product managers, and it's about precision. So can a product manager now be really, really precise about which segment in an organization the scale of ours? You can't be average. You can't sit on the fence. You need to know which segment are you really targeting? What is the customer problem to solve? How will we communicate it in a really, really busy world that's coherent with our brand into the UK market? So it's been a lot about that shift from being delivery agents, so delivering the products, to actually how do we own the business, how do we drive for growth, and how do we do it through that mindset of that 360 product manager.
So I want to double click on that because I can imagine there's so many people that hear that message that says we're going to treat product as a business. And how do you make sure that that message actually trickles down and every PM has a sense of how they are kind of contributing towards that mission and the message doesn't get lost kind of in translation?
Yeah, you can never communicate enough. I think it's one we've probably all learned through our careers. So we do have to be very deliberate about it, and we do it everywhere from how we talk about that 360 product manager. It's absolutely embedded into everyone's objectives and their reviews at the end of the year. When we look at our performance metrics, it's about the what and the how. So they are very clearly measured on that. We look at the types of product managers we're hiring going forward. You talked a little bit about how do you bring AI natives. We clearly, in an incumbent the size we are, we can't only bring incumbent natives into our business because we've got infrastructure in our business that has been there for quite some time. But that hiring is really important. So getting our leaders to think about how do they coach the people in their teams, but also how do they hire and start to bring in the new talent and capability we need. And then the other thing is to just be really clear with people. They are there to deliver outcomes, not outputs. It's really easy to write a list of activities you've done at the end of the day, the end of the month, and to look back and say, I was productive. Well, you weren't unless you delivered an outcome that delivered value. So it's those conversations we're consistently having with people to push it all the way down the organization.
One of the things I mentioned before is that the definition of product engineering and even design is getting blurrier, right? So I'm curious to know within your company, as you work with engineers, product people, how do you create that healthy tension or tough love, if you will, to make sure that they kind of work well together, but at the same time, they understand that they cannot always be friends?
I think tough love is a brilliant way of putting it. When the product engineering relationship works the best is when there is transparency, when there's trust, but to your point, there is a real tension in there, a productive tension and a positive tension. But you need to have that because no one person's ever going to be right. So you want to be able to make sure that space there is for creative. But ultimately, it still means it's about releasing value fastest to the customer. So for me, our product managers are there to, one, be the biggest supporter of our engineering teams. We talk about being the engineer's best friend. That's a language that every product manager knows in BT, and it is about being the engineer's best friend. That doesn't mean you're putting something over the fence and hoping it comes back. Like, that world's gone. So how do you make sure that you as a product manager now can be their best friend, which means being really clear on what you're asking for? Yeah, that clarity is so important. Now, what is the outcome that you are searching to deliver to meet that customer need, to solve that customer problem? To your point, Carlos, there'll be a point where we need to protect them because someone will come in with the next best shiny thing. May not have a customer need really underneath it, but it looks pretty cool. That's not going to cut it either. So they then need to be able to protect them and equally then be their biggest supporter of great work they've done. But there will come a point when decisions need to be taken. And one of the classics may be, in a messy world, we start to create technical debt. And so the product manager has to be able to stand up at that point and say, look, we have to put a pause in because we've run a little bit ragged, in the pursuit of pace. We've run a little bit creative in terms of being able to try and find and experiment and move our way through a little bit of pace. But if that technical debt is starting to hurt the customer experience, at that point, the product manager has to say no. They need to put the pause into the business and say, look, what we did commit, what we said we were going to do to deliver those outcomes, we're just going to slow it all down a little bit to allow the engineering teams and us collectively to get that technical debt back out of the way and bring the customer experience back into an intact place.
So as engineers, even PMs, are covering more ground. It's incredible. Like, now they can do, in some cases, what 2, 3, even 10 people could do before. How is that affecting the ratios that you have?
Yeah, I think, to your point, I think it's at least 2, 3 times the engineering teams can move. And so for me, it's not about lessening the role of the product manager. It is really about that depth of role they play now. So we are shifting the teams around. There's a lot more sensing and really being it's a far more strategic role than it was before. And so we're having to really develop our product managers so that they have got that strategic capability. So they are thinking a lot more about the types of AI requirements they need to think about. So whether that's about data provenance, whether it's about the regulatory environment, it was always there, but these are coming right to the forefront now. So it's not about a lesser role for our product managers. They are working hand in hand with the engineers, but to stay ahead of them, to your point, because of the speed and velocity at which the engineers are able to code, it will be more of co-creation. And the shift change in a product manager is that it's a different skill set to that co-creation. It's a more strategic and sensing skill set that we're looking for.
I asked that question a lot to other product executives because I haven't found like a magic rule yet. I was hesitant to actually put it in my own presentation because it's so dependent on the context, at least for now.
Yeah, and I think if I look at some of our products, as we said, we're a 130-year-old brand. We've got some products out there, believe it or not, that are sat in some fairly archaic systems. But right now, to your point, how we would operate that, there's not an opportunity for coding that faster. That's a system that we need to run and have a careful set of hands around. If we then look to some of the more edge-like cases, so where we're looking into security, cloud, IoT, some of those types of services, absolutely, that is where the dynamic has changed completely. And those product and engineering teams, the ratios, it's not predictable, but it's less product managers, it is more engineering, and it's a co-creation role. So it's an overlap of a role now.
And then you mentioned AI a couple of times. I think one of the unique situations in your business is that you're really playing at all 3 layers of the stack, right? From the infrastructure to the model to the application. So how are you organizing your own team and making sure that you can kind of play and win and have the right to win at all of the levels?
Yeah, I think this is a big one. I'm going to mention that horrible word, full stack transformation. And anyone who's been anywhere near telco, you'll know we have got a very, very heavy background in managing stacks that have become monolithic. So I genuinely believe when you're looking at bringing AI through the organization, it is a full stack transformation. If we ignore it and jump to the glossy, cool, fun stuff, you are going to end up with a problem further down the line. So we are viewing it very much as it's a full stack transformation to bring it in. And why we call it that is there's 3 core layers that we've got to get right. The infrastructure. you need to be really clear on that infrastructure layer. And I'll talk a little bit more about my view on what we need to think about. There's a second layer, then data. Treat the data as a product. If you don't do it now, it will come back and bite you later on. It doesn't matter how hard you want to accelerate, and the glossiness on the top, you are going to come backwards pretty rapidly. And we've made a few of those mistakes, and we've learned painfully. And then you've got the application layer. That's the only point it becomes real to customers. Those agentic agents that we can release out there that you've heard talked about, they sit in that application layer, but they don't work until you get the other two layers right. So what we've been focusing on, and we've been experimenting and playing around with this a little bit, that infrastructure layer is all about, have we really got the resilience? Have we got the latency? And have we got the security? Yeah, before you go anywhere, that's what needs to be right and true. And for a product manager, our product managers didn't spend that much time in the past thinking about those things. So the core questions they're asking now when they're thinking about a product is, where is that AI inference layer, really? Is it in the cloud? Is it on the edge? Is it in the device? Yeah, product manager really needs to know that and think about that very, very early on. They need to think about whether or not what does business critical resilience really mean? It's not a nice to have. Right? If you're going to sell, like we do, national critical infrastructure out to government and other large players across the UK, we really need to know what business criticality means. And then thirdly, at that application layer, we've got to be really clear in terms of what does that mean in terms of building those agentic agents. If you go back one layer, before you can unleash the agentic agents, that data layer, if you don't treat it as a product, it'll either become your opportunity to have real competitive differentiation, or it's going to be a compliance and risk issue. And there is a fine line between which way those two go. And so that product really being treating data as a product and making sure you've got that compliance layer true, your data provenance, you understand the security around it, you understand how that data is going to get released and be reused across the core systems, not just in pockets, then those agents can be released and you can trust what they're going to do. But that trust layer without the infrastructure and the data, you're likely to have a set of agents wandering out there that you're going to have a hell of a job trying to call back in again.
Kerry, as I hear you talk about tech debt, compliance, playing across multiple layers, and you're so chill talking about it. Like, I was thinking and getting anxiety just to think about maintaining speed, certain momentum, right? So you can stay competitive, not just with incumbents, but the new players that are trying to now take a piece of the cake. So that concept of speed or velocity, like how do you try to maintain some of that at your scale?
Yeah. It's a tough question, honestly. So I think we have been too slow to react to that, and challenges are in the market. We're being attacked from every different place. People want to bundle telecoms into whether it's insurance, whether it's your bank account, whether it's with commodities. So as you say, everyone is having a go at this space. And if we don't move, we won't meet the customer needs, and we won't do it in a frictionless way that means they'll come to us, because that's why customers choose. Right? It's easy to do, and you fix the problem they've got. We aren't a startup, as we talked about. It's not an excuse, but if I say to the team, go out and just experiment, fail fast, it's not about just failing fast in a business running critical national infrastructure. If we go and experiment and we break something, we could bring down all of the public services. That's our trains, that's our banking systems, that's the blue light services. It's not an opportunity for a playground. However, that would be an excuse if you said that's the whole of BT. Yeah. So what we really work to is that core network, which is running those systems. We have to have guardrails around that and really protect it. That doesn't stop us innovating around the edges. Yeah. And we have to have that startup mentality and that break it, fail fast mentality for everything around the edge. What does that really look like there as a product manager? Because it can sound like it's quite nice. You can stick it on PowerPoint and go, well, I get it. Does that mean we're not really doing anything then? Well, no. Because what we try to do is use that opportunity to get speed through putting guardrails down. So around the core network, as an example, what we want people to do is look at, actually, the core network has got a huge amount of data. Our next generation products, we're going to have to tie the data, the networks, and our engineering team even closer together to release the value that our customers are all looking for. And so what we're really trying to do there is, if we can put the guardrails and say, We set up squads. So like everybody else, BT, we've got squads. We're not immune to working like that. We've moved away from waterfall. We've moved to smaller groups, not big committees. And back to where we started, those teams who are really obsessive about that business they own and run, the segment, what's the customer pain point to fix, how would we do it different from anyone else? They operate in those squads. Where the magic comes at the moment is we then say, as we move into using platforms, we use those as guardrails, because normally that would be where it all gets a bit stuck, right? Oh, I can't touch the network, can't touch this. If in the platforms, we've already made sure they're secure by design, we've already made sure the resilience is by design, and we've already understood a lot of that piece around what are the ethics around building AI trustworthy products, they don't need to come back and keep asking and saying, is it okay to do this? Is it okay to that? Because we've built it in. That gives us speed that we never had before, because every one of those would have come back up to a committee. Can I do this? Can I do that? You know, the usual scenario of up, down. And you heard from the first speaker, right? That monolith working is really, really slow. So we've taken that out by building all that into the core network by design and the platforms around it. And then outside of that, when we want to put all of the solutions, the applications around it, we can do that. That's where everyone can play and break and go as fast as we can to build those applications over the top that mean we can be competitive and we can be faster movers than the competition that are out there at the moment.
There's a very popular term, at least in Silicon Valley, they say 0 to 1. And everybody wants to be a 0 to 1 PM because you are in your playground, you are allowed to break things, and there are more mature products where, as you said, like you have higher stakes. How do you go about strategically prioritizing your bets? I can imagine some of them are more 0 to 1, you have more leeway, they are all core product you have to maintain. Like in general, like what is your approach?
Yeah, we still use a relatively traditional product lifecycle management. So to your point, we've got a set of products there that are you know, we want to make sure we've got a minimum of 20% is all our growth products. And the set then we manage through our mature, and we're consistently trying to take out products. So as an example at the moment, to move through that, we're moving from 312 products to 11 products. We will get down to. So we're going through a huge culling exercise. So we consistently make sure that we've got as fewer products as possible to meet the customer needs. That's one of the most critical things, because in a business of this size, the technical debt that is being built up across all those platforms, you need to weed that out before you move across. The bigger bets at the other side are then, to your point, how do we make sure we've got 20% in our growth portfolio? And that's where we make sure, quite frankly, our star performers are. So those AI native people are being hired in to be able to move and act and behave differently. They've got a greenfield platform. They're not being pulled back by the old IT estates. We're building the new IT platforms over there. And we're making sure that where we've got risk, we're really building it into those platforms. So there's a huge amount of time, as you say, to be able to bet on where we go. The more we can build security resilience by design, we don't have to worry about it. We can suppress that down, because otherwise that would have been the key area for us to worry about, quite honestly. When we're trying to look for the trade-offs, it would have been regulatory, legal. You don't want to do that product by product by product. If we've now designed that into the system ahead of AI coming, we can then start to release it. And I think the last bit we're really looking at is obviously with the AI agentic agents now, we're really keen to make sure a product manager, when they're looking at that product lifecycle process, if you're building a set of agents, we need to build them for a task. Yeah, they can't be there for the sake of it. So if someone tries to put something on a roadmap and say it's a real priority because it's agentic, it's pretty quickly across through it. Is it agentic in that it will now start to perform a task? So will it fix a fault quicker? Will it allow us to complete a set of activities to do a provisioning job? We are prioritizing ones where we can see that, and where product managers actually come with a KPI against them. They will get moved forward now, because those AI agents, to your point, will actually do an awful lot more work faster for us. And so they move up the scale, but only if we treat them almost as the human role that was there. We can attach KPI to it, and then we can put that investment against those KPIs.
How many people are there under your org?
Yes, we're circa about 300 in the product organization.
So if I were to zoom into your calendar and at least identify the main themes, right? Like, where do you spend your time?
That's a good question, Carlos. So for me, it's super important that it's more long term. So yeah, I've got a fantastic team. I'm really lucky that they are more worried about the day-to-day. My job is to stay out of the day-to-day. I will be looking at the business as a whole, so the business P&L. Where do we want to go in 3 years' time? So right now, if you think about it, our core business, connectivity, is being commoditized. Yeah, it's not. We don't dress it up to anything else. It is a relatively commoditizing area of the business. However, it's really bloody important. How many of you don't carry your phone around, have all of your your bank details on it? You will have all of your branded calling soon on it as your simple way to move from single-factor authentication to the new way of authenticating everything that you do. So it has a really cool role, but not for what it's known. And I spend my time working out where are those new use cases that we can create value that takes the connectivity up the value chain. So we're looking at new profit pools, finding out where we can then align our resources to those profit pools and taking them off of those more mature products and services, so that we're betting on the future and betting on growth.
So you have a portfolio of products that are mostly future forward,
Yeah.
and then you also protect the core that is being more commoditized.
Yeah, I couldn't not look at the core. As I said, they're worth $1 billion each, these portfolios. So they need to be maintained and managed, but less of my time, I'm looking at those as an overall set of KPIs. More of my time is what other people are doing, so learning from the market and selling outside of telco, really looking for those new profit pools and those growth areas. And also and then on the team, culture and our people. You can bring all the tools in the world, getting the right team in place who can adopt, who can learn, who can really move forward at pace. That's what's key to us at the moment.
I think we met maybe 2.5 years ago or 3, and first time I met you, I remember you coming into the room, big room, a lot of people, and you went straight to the point. Like, I remember your ability to read the room, ask the question, move on. That's something that I appreciate, especially in the startup environment, but I found refreshing in a larger environment, and I think that also sets the tone for what you expect from other people around you.
Yeah, and I think some of my teammates say I'm a bit direct. Hey, swings and roundabouts. I've had a number of different managers. I always want to learn, so I appreciate direct feedback. I like to give it as well because I think it's just the faster way. The world is moving so quickly. We had a quick talk beforehand. Our children are moving into a world where all of this is just what they do anyway, right? Your daughter's vibe coding already. My daughter is already sitting there working out how she's going to sort of create the next multi-million-pound startup. There's a world where we've got to learn fast. So cutting through, quite frankly, the noise, and a lot of things out there are noise. If we want to be leaders that create and push the boundaries, you have got to cut through what I often call the narrative. You can explain all day. You can admire the problem. But actually, if you want to do the big leapfrog and you want to change the game, you've got to be able to be direct about it and be able to take a team with you on that journey.
Thank you for being direct. It's been a pleasure to have you on stage.
Thank you.